Battle Through the Heavens, Grand World. Chapter 99. A Favor. After resting for about 10 days, Xiaoyan finally felt the pain in his body lighten a little. Even so, he could only slightly get up and move around. Xiaoyan was not worried about his external injuries at all. With the help of Duruoxi's medicinal herbs and the fact that he could secretly concoct some effective medicinal liquid with one hand, he estimated that he would be able to recover from his external injuries in about half a month's time. However, the serious injuries in his soul and body gave Xiaoyan a headache. Previously, in order to break Lei Shan's Thunder Dragon prison domain, he didn't hesitate to consume his source energy, causing severe damage to his body. The Monarch Flame was extremely weak, and the Xiaoao was still recuperating in the Sovereign Fire source. If he didn't think of a way, the Monarch Flame would most likely suffer a fundamental blow. Thinking of this, Xiaoyan felt somewhat fortunate that he didn't reject the Jade Elemental bead that Man Yun had given him in Forest Domain. Although it didn't have the effect that he had expected, it had still given him a precious opportunity. My current strength should have recovered to the Sovereign Realm. If I don't get rid of the injuries in my body, even if I recover to the Sovereign Master Realm, there will still be a huge hidden danger. Lying on the bed, Xiaoyan had a worried look on his face. He looked at his messy body with a bitter expression. Up until now, he had been seriously injured, and the Xiaoao had used up a lot of his strength to recuperate. The Xiao Yi, as the fire spirit of the Monarch Flame, had no choice but to fall into a deep sleep because of the Monarch Flame. It's really useless. Xiaoyan underestimated him. At this time, Lu Wu walked in with a white jade bottle in his hand and said, "Get up, the medicine has been applied." These days, Lu Wu would take a bottle of medicinal liquid that Duruoxi refined and apply it to Xiaoyan every day. Sometimes, it would also be others, just like what Lu Wu had said. When these people talked about Duruoxi, their faces were filled with admiration. They also understood the good intentions of the latter. Although it was said that it was a gang, everyone actually got along very well with each other. In order to maintain the expenses of the gang, everyone would go to the nearby mountains to pick herbs or kill some low-grade spirit beasts when they were free. Sell them in exchange for some monarch crystals. Due to Xiaoyan's injuries, ordinary herbs were unable to provide any healing effects. These herbs were picked by Duruoxi from a distant valley. After spending a few days together, Xiaoyan had also witnessed Duruoxi's character. She was a typical cold person on the outside, but hot on the inside. On the surface, she was carefree towards the members of the gang, but her heart was like a strand of hair, just like what Lu Wu had said before. After stripping Xiaoyan of his clothes, Lu Wu poured the yellow medicinal liquid from the jade bottle onto Xiaoyan's chest. After that, a pair of rough hands quickly wiped the medicinal liquid evenly. When the medicinal liquid was poured onto his body, a scorching heat instantly spread throughout his entire body. Xiaoyan endured the pain and said, "Can you be gentle? I am still injured." Lu Wu snorted coldly in disdain. After a few strokes, he stood up and teased. "If you're afraid of pain, you can let boss apply it on you. Boss's strength is light, haha." When Xiaoyan heard this, his head was full of black lines. He shook his head and said no more. Lu Wu was about to chase after him when Xiaoyan suddenly spoke. "The ingredients for these medicinal liquids are very expensive, right?" Lu Wu was stunned for a moment, then he shook his head and said vaguely. Maybe. It has always been boss who bought it, but in Spirit Sky City, these kinds of medicinal liquids with serious injuries are generally not cheap." "Nonsense," Xiaoyan said snappily. He thought for a while and said, "When I was in Forest Domain, I once entered a ruin and obtained some monarch crystals. There should be 100,000 inside. Give it to boss for me." After saying that, Xiaoyan's weak soul searched the storage ring for a while. Then, he took out the storage rings Lian Yunhai had given him and stored them in his spatial monarch crystal. 100,000. Lu Wu's eyes almost popped out when he saw the black storage ring in Xiaoyan's hand. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and immediately grabbed it with a big smile on his face. "Good kid. I didn't see it. How do you know that the sect is in need of monarch crystals?" Haha. As he spoke, Lu Wu was about to kiss Xiaoyan intimately. However, his old face was slapped to the side by the latter. Lu Wu laughed and fell out of the door. "Sigh, I'll take out 100,000 first. If I take out 500,000 at once, it would be too frightening." When Xiao Yan heard Lu Wu's crazy laughter in the yard, he shook his head helplessly. Although he also lacked monarch crystals, Duruoxi's favor was too great. Her life was almost saved by him. The 100,000 monarch crystals seemed too light. Furthermore, these people had been taking care of him for so many days, and Xiao Yan was also willing to help the gang do some things. Since he could not do anything, he could only pay. I still need to organize a few storage rings. In the future, I still need to find an excuse to give monarch crystals. After thinking for a while, Xiao Yan stretched out his hand. There were a total of 2 storage rings on his finger. One was his, and the other was left behind by Elder Yi. He thought of Elder Yi. Xiao Yan felt a wave of melancholy again. It had been more than a year since he left the illusion realm. In just a short year, he had experienced so many things. Just as Xiao Yan was lost in his thoughts, Duruoxi suddenly brought Lu Wu into the room. She looked at Xiao Yan with a serious face and shouted, "Do you know how much 100,000 monarch crystals is? How can you take it out just like that? Do you think that I did not work hard to treat you because of your monarch crystal?" Xiao Yan was stunned. He glanced at Lu Wu who was behind Duruoxi. This guy looked at him with a wrong face. He pointed at Duruoxi and shook his head. Xiao Yan looked at Duruoxi, who was obviously angry, and sat up. He stared at Duruoxi's eyes and said slowly, "Are you kidding me? My life is not something that can be offset by 100,000 monarch crystals. You are kind and think that it has hurt your self-esteem. But have you ever thought about the 30 over brothers in the Tuanji gang? They respect you. In order to respect you, you are willing to give up the honor of the Alchemist Guild to help them. Then, isn't this 100,000 monarch crystals a better way to help them?" Duruoxi heard this and said with a cold face, "I can help them myself. I don't need you." Xiao Yan smiled and said, "You are alone. Even if our brothers help you, how much can they repay you? Take Lu Wu for example. He is now a second Dao Sovereign Master, but if he has enough monarch crystals, he can buy some ordinary medicine pills that are useful for his cultivation. He can definitely advance to the 4th Dao in advance, and not cultivate slowly here." Duruoxi's pretty face changed slightly when she heard this. She subconsciously looked at Lu Wu behind her, and saw the latter's innocent expression. Duruoxi lightly sighed and her tough voice also softened, "You are right. I cannot harm them because of my self-esteem. But 100,000 Spirit Sky Cities is too much. It is not a small fortune even in Spirit Sky City. Take some back." Xiao Yan laughed out loud and said, "Like I said, my life is not something that 100,000 monarch crystals can offset. For the time being, you don't have to worry about the trivial matters of the sect. You can focus on dealing with the matters of the Alchemist Association." Duruoxi bit her lips and nodded. "That's right. Actually, I'm sorry to say that. How could I reject the invitation of the Alchemist Association? Joining the Alchemist Association requires more than 10,000 monarch crystals. Furthermore, I need someone to recommend." Xiao Yan smiled slightly. "I heard from Lu Wu that the alchemists who join the Alchemist Guild will receive a certain amount of subsidy every month. A Tier 1 alchemist will receive 3,000, and a Tier 2 alchemist will receive 8,000. Your alchemy skills should be at Tier 1, right? Furthermore, the person who recommends you will only need to reach Tier 2, right?" Seeing Duruoxi nod her head, Xiao Yan suddenly smiled slyly. "Boss, don't worry. In a few months, someone will recommend you." Chapter end. Hi guys, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.